Okay. So we do the one time, the homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the fully enlightened one. Okay, so good morning, everybody. Now we are already in September. The time is always always going very, very quickly. And let me share the screen now. Okay, is the document visible?
Yes, Bhante.
Okay, so we're continuing now with our reading of the Anguttara Nikaya, the numerical discourses of the Buddha. And we're still in the Book of Sevens. And now we come to Sutta number 51. And this is introduced by the Buddha by saying that he's going to teach an exposition on union. The translation here, a little problematic, union and disengagement. But if you look at the Pali words, let's increase the point size. So we see it's Sang Yoga and Visang Yoga. So the essence of both words is Sang Yoga, which comes from the word yoga, which doesn't mean originally the system of physical exercises, bending and stretching exercises, but yoga has a sense here of union, and Sang Yoga sort of emphasizes that as a coming together or unification. And then the opposite of that is Visang Yoga. So the V has the sense of separation. So this is coming together and separation, or union is what I use for Sang Yoga, but disunion would have sounded odd in English. So I had to use another word. Maybe if I were to translate it afresh now, I would have used union and disunion. But disunion usually means the dissolution of a community which is bound together. Okay, and this sutta is concerned, I mean, we have to be honest and candid about the arising of, on the one side, by union is the arising of sexual desire leading to sexual engagement. And Visang Yoga is the overcoming or the ending of sexual desire, culminating in disengagement or disunion, the ending of the union. And the commentary to the sutta, which is very, very short, but it says that the theme of the sutta is vata and vivata. Let's see if I could type that in. Yeah, so the word vata, or Sanskrit varta, means the round, like a whirlpool or a cycle. And so it's referring to the cycle of repeated birth and death, or in other words, samsara. And then vivata is, again, the word V has the sense of, or the particle prefix V has the sense of separation or ending. So this is the ending of the round, the ending of the cycle, the ending of samsara. And so the way the commentary understands this is that it's positioning the sexual attraction, desire, and union as a force that maintains or sustains the round of repeated birth and death, samsara, and then the ending of sexual attraction and sexual desire and sexual union as part of the means to liberation from the round. And so we see that in the Buddha's exposition of craving, he mentions of three types of craving, and the first is kama tanha. And so craving is the primary force, the primordial force, which drives the cycle of repeated birth and death, and which always culminates in dukkha. And so one of the three aspects of craving is kama tanha, the craving for sensual enjoyment, of which sexual enjoyment is a primary mode. And then part of the process of gaining liberation from samsara, the ending of dukkha, is the removal, the abandoning, the elimination of craving, including sensual craving. But something to me, my way of thinking, doesn't quite seem correct here. Maybe we could discuss this, but it's sort of contrary to my own limited experience. Let's see how it works. Okay, so it begins by saying a woman attends internally, that's in relation to herself, to her, it mentions 7 aspects of femininity here. So this is why the sutta is included in the book of sevens. She attends internally, that's in relation to herself, to her feminine faculty, her feminine comportment, her feminine comportment, her feminine appearance, her feminine aspect, her feminine desire, her feminine voice, her feminine ornamentation. Let's just see if the Pali words. In fact, I missed the first one in this note. I realized I say it is these 7 terms, but here there's only 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I think in copying and pasting from the original Pali document, I overlooked the first one. So the first one is it indriya. So that is the feminine faculty. And in the Abhidhamma way of understanding, like this is a particular material formation, a rupa dhamma, a material factor that is responsible for the, let's say, for the manifestation of a person as a female. Perhaps in modern terms, it might correspond to, is it the double X chromosome? The male has XY and the
Yes, Bhante. Yes.
okay,
Yes,
somebody,
that's correct, Bhante.
okay, so the female has double X, the male has XY. Okay, so in contemporary scientific terms, it might correspond to the XX feature of the chromosome. So it's that which is responsible for the manifestation of the feminine features. And then iti kuta, kuta is from the verb karoti, to do. It's the manner of acting. Iti kappa, it's very, very similar. So we have, yeah, so I had for iti kupa, the feminine comportment. Iti kappa, it's really, it says a feminine appearance, but it maybe more would be the manner of doing things. And then iti vidang, vida is just aspect, so feminine aspect. sometimes it's a little difficult to differentiate some of these terms. Iti chanda, so this is a feminine desire. So women have different desires from men. Iti sara, sara is swara, the voice. So there's a difference in the voices of females, right, between males. And iti alankara, alankara is ornamentation. So I mean, it's quite interesting. Like even when you have things like wristwatches today, like there'll be one kind of wristwatch is appropriate for males, another kind of wristwatch appropriate for females. Um, Today, women wear earrings, and even men are now wearing earrings, but I think that there are different kinds of earrings that men wear. The women will wear necklace. Do men wear necklaces? You know, I don't know what people do out in the world. Um,
Yes, they do, Bante.
okay, what you wear around the wrist is a bracelet.
Correct.
Um, okay, necklaces, bracelets. What is earrings? Nose rings. Yeah, especially in ancient, well, even in modern India, I think many women have nose rings. And now nose rings also become fashionable for males. Um, anyway, so there are different types. And of course, ornamentation includes not only jewelry, but also putting on makeup. Um, what do you call the makeup you put on the face? Compact. And then there's eyebrow makeup,
Yeah,
eyelash makeup, lipstick.
yeah.
Okay, so different kinds of ornamentation. Okay, so this is the first sentence. Then she becomes excited by these, and the word translated excited is rajati, from which we get the word raga, which comes to mean passion or lust. So becomes excited by these and takes delighted in them and takes delight in them. Then excited by them, taking delight in them, she attends externally to a man's masculine faculty, as we could say the general features of a man, his masculine comportment, masculine appearance, masculine aspect, desire, voice, and ornamentation. And then she becomes, when she attends to these, she becomes excited by these, and rajati implies excited by lust and takes delight in them. And then excited by these, taking delight in these, she desires union externally. And then the word union, again, here is yoga, and also desires the pleasure and joy that arise on count of such union. And I'm not sure that yoga necessarily entails immediately sexual relationship or sexual intercourse, but it can have a very broad sense of just coming together and encountering, like going to a meeting, a dance, a social function where the woman will have the opportunity to meet men. Today, it could be joining a chat group where you have a chance, really, where women and men get to meet each other over these dating websites. But eventually, sort of the culmination of that union externally, since it's based on attention to one's sexual features, will be sexual union, sexual engagement. Yeah, well, I say that I find this a little bit puzzling or problematic. And please let me know from your own experience. It seems to me, going back to the days when I was a little teenager, that first, you don't Okay, as a man, a male, I don't attend first to my masculine faculty, masculine comportment, masculine appearance, and so on, but rather first, my mind becomes attracted to the female. So I'm not thinking anything about how my hair looks, what kind of clothes I'm wearing, what kind of ornaments I might be wearing, what my voice sounds like, what I'm speaking like. But first, I become attracted to the female. Ah, she's so pretty, so beautiful. Ah, so, so I'm attracted to her features, such nice hair, sweet smile, beautiful eyes. Then I start looking in the mirror and thinking, wow, I look like a mess, right? Then I start thinking I have to start getting a stylish haircut. And in the 1950s, this was a sort of pompadour, like Elvis Presley used to have. And well, at that time, even I wasn't yet, didn't even have whiskers yet, so I couldn't grow sideburns. But after you get into your late teens, early 20s, you might grow sideburns, grow a mustache, a beard. So that's part of the masculine ornamentation. And then, of course, you think about your clothes. You have to be stylish, have a good shirt. And then you think about your deportment or comportment. You have to be moving in a certain way, showing that you're tough, strong, dominant. Yeah, so it seems to me that first, one doesn't immediately start attending to your own sexual features, but first one becomes sort of attracted to or engaged with the sexually attractive features of a member, generally for a heterosexual person of the opposite sex. And then when that happens, then one reflects back upon one's own appearance, comportment, um, manner, and so forth. Okay, so this is first the Buddha presents from the standpoint of the woman looking towards the male, and then he continues. So he says that beings who are delighted with their femininity, so women delighted with their femininity, enter upon union with men. And it is in this way that a woman does not transcend her femininity. Okay, then the same thing is said just with a reversal of roles about a man in relation to the woman. So the man attends internally to his own masculine faculty, his masculine comportment, the way he moves, his appearance, his masculine aspect. This seems very general. His masculine desire, his voice, and his ornamentation. Then he becomes excited by these and takes delight in them, excited by them, taking delight in them. Then he attends externally to a woman's feminine faculty, comportment, appearance, and so on, becomes excited by these and takes delight in them. And then again, taking delight in them, excited by them, taking delight in them. He desires union externally. So he'll go to a dance, join a social club, or in ancient India, I guess there will be regular family gatherings where you get to meet your second cousins and more distant relatives. And then when you see some of these well, in India, even they marry the first cousins. It's quite common. And then
No, I
in
don't
modern
think.
times, you'll maybe go to where do people go to meet? I remember years ago, I said, this is when I was in Bodhi Monastery. I said people will go to discos. And then I think it was Marcy here who corrected me and saying, people don't go to discos anymore. But there must be dance halls that people go to. So desiring union, one goes to a place to meet members of the opposite sex. And then one desires pleasure and joy that arise on account of such union. And so then it says, beings, this will be men who are delighted with their masculinity, enter upon union with women. And in this way, it's in this way that a man does not transcend his masculinity. I'm trying to find the Zoom window. Yeah, so what do you think? Does this seem, does, does my comment seem correct? That this seems to get things reversed from the way it normally operates? That first you become attracted to a member of the opposite sex, then you reflect back upon yourself.
Hi, Bante. I think that's how normally
We have,
most people.
Jason, do we have the microphone?
Yeah, I think it's normal what you're thinking, Bante. What you thought about it's just
The
normal.
way I
Yeah,
presented.
it's normal. A
Yeah,
lot of people, I have a lot of classmates before that they get it, fell in love right away to a woman, and then they said, "Oh, you're right." Like they start taking care of themselves, started,
yeah.
yeah.
But Bhante, like when people start in teenage years, they tend to take care of themselves because puberty has started and they want to be, if they want to look good. So they, like teenagers, always take care of themselves, men and women both, right? That's like a normal, and
Yeah,
then
but
of
it
course,
seems to me, this is just from my own experience, that one doesn't start thinking about one's own sort of sexual features first, and then turn the focus to the member of the opposite sex, but rather the attraction to a member of the opposite sex occurs first, and then one reflects back upon oneself and thinks, how do I look? How am I moving? What kind of clothes am I wearing? And so forth.
In Bante, this is a difference between the women and men. Maybe men feel that way and they do act that way, but I believe the woman's side, they really care about at the young age how they look, even they don't know anybody, or they want to be attractive, so they pay attention to themselves.
Okay, okay. It's good to have it from a woman's perspective. I don't have an internal
That's
I
why
don't
I
have
share,
internal access to that.
yeah.
because I
Okay.
agree with the lady that just spoke about the teenage girls. I mean, they go out of their way to make sure they are pretty, and they, unfortunately, the society has made it this way, that the woman has to take care of themselves and they have to look so pretty and they have to be desirable.
Yeah,
So
that
they
is very
try to
true.
intend that, and then but as for the male, they have no social pressure to look good or anything. They're good enough because they male.
I don't know if that's true.
No, actually, what I now, because I talk to teenage girls these days, that why you take care of
I mean, what
yourself.
you say about teenage girls is true, but
Yeah, they said they do it for themselves. They're not trying to attract anyone. They just want to look good, so they go to the
yeah, but I
parlor.
think in the case of males,
Males,
you
yeah.
said that
Male
they're
and
not.
some of them are interested, some of them are not. It's different for different people. I see
Yeah.
some young boys are very nicely dressed, and but some of them just like mess, like you're saying. They don't care much.
Hmm. Okay, T. Lanka, you could pass. Do you want to say something, Sylvie?
Yes.
You have the microphone, so you might as well.
Yeah. My experience interact with young boys, they being influenced a lot by social media or by their friends, classmates, everybody, all their brother, elderly. So they being influenced in this country at this.
Yeah.
It's very important. Everybody want to look cool. So even young boy, they will do the hair.
So
like
even before the sexual
yeah,
attraction,
7, 8 years old, they want to go to school. They already put some gel, put something, and have to wear very cool shirt
hmm,
because the culture here.
okay, okay.
I think it's for boys, it's also nurture how they grew up in the household. If your family, your parents, especially like your parents, like mother, would even you're 6, 7, 8 years old, 10, 12, before you become a teenager, your mother makes you dress nicely and
Yeah.
always done, that it becomes a habit for them, and they groom all the time and dress shirts are ironed because it's like a regimented lifestyle or something like that. If that happens, that would become the boys to be when they're teenager, they're already ready. Yeah.
Okay, so he's saying that it often happens in the household that the parents will put sort of pressure on the child.
Not
to-
sort of pressure, it's just the way how everybody in the house would be, and especially like, how you were being when compared to your cousins.
And
Even
then come
when compared to your cousins or relatives around, your
compared to
your cousins,
your
like
cousins.
cousins, like your immediate family, how
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
dress up. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Okay, so anyway, let us then just continue with the sutta. Okay, so now let's. So now the text moves on to the next part. So how does disengagement come about? Well, this is Visang Yoga, sort of breaking that connection. It's a little bit mechanical the way the sutta is filled out. So the woman does not attend internally to her feminine faculty and so on. She does not become excited by these or take delight in them, not excited by them, not taking delight in them. She does not attend externally to a man's masculine faculty and so on. She does not become excited by these or take delight in them. And not excited by these, not taking delight in them. She does not desire union externally, nor does she desire the pleasure and joy that arise on account of such union. Beings who are not delighted with their femininity become disengaged from men. This is the Visang Yoga aspect. It is in this way that a woman transcends her femininity. And then the same is said about how a man transcends his masculinity. So we don't have to spell it out in detail. So this actually doesn't, the sutta doesn't actually explain the process by which one actually sort of weakens, eliminates, and eventually overcomes the sexual desire. So for that, one has to go to other suttas. So this is just stated as the converse of the process by which sexual attraction occurs. So basically, the way a person overcomes or transcends their sexual identity is, I mean, the text mentioned various methods. And so the sort of the starting point, and this is in the monastic training, is the restraint of the senses. So not letting the senses, especially sight and hearing, move outward and grasp upon what are called the general features or the signs of, in the case of a man, of a woman, in the case of a woman, the general features of the man, and then the anubhyanjana, which are the particular details, detailed features. And so this is restraint of the senses. So when a man first focuses upon the general appearance of a woman, then the mind naturally starts to go to looking for the details. Again, the nice, beautiful hair, nice eyebrows, beautiful eyes, nice smile, breasts, hips, everything. And so it starts focusing, exploring the details, and that will cause the sensual desire to arise. And so we have to practice restraint of the senses, which the Buddha says doesn't mean that you avoid looking or hearing, but you don't let the mind grasp upon the signs and the details. You don't dwell upon them. So that is the initial method of moving towards overcoming the sensual desire. And then a higher stage is training the mind through meditation to overcome these sensual thoughts. And the most sort of direct antidote to that recommended in the suttas is the asubha bhavana or subha sanya, the perception of the unattractive nature of the body. And this is done by investigating the body in terms of usually the classical list of 32 parts, examining the body in terms of the different constituents, components, organs, tissues, and fluids. And so training the mind to see into the real nature of the body. And so the sensual desire arises and becomes stronger based upon a sanya, a perception of the attractive nature or beautiful nature of the body. And so when you look into the body in terms of its features, sort of penetrating through the skin to see the different components, tissues, fluids, then the body loses its unattractive appearance. The attractive appearance becomes seen as just superficial and external appearance for what is really an accumulation or of different unattractive components. And so that is one way to train to overcome the sensual desire. And another way works more directly with thoughts. So when sensual thoughts arise, one just observes them and notes them as thoughts and lets them go. And sometimes even the texts recommend, especially for the monastics, the somewhat forceful suppression of those thoughts, which is not repression. Repression is pushing out of the field of awareness unconsciously so that those forces accumulate in the background of the mind and can still exercise a controlling influence over the working of the mind from behind the screen, so to speak. But in this case, one is recognizing the thoughts when they arise, identifying them, but just not letting the mind be controlled by those thoughts. But the Buddha says that one, he's sometimes forceful language, one abandons them, discards them, expels them, eliminates them, eradicates them. And so that is a kind of temporary way of removing those thoughts. But then as one trains the mind, particularly in the practice of samatha or calming meditation, then one can experience a kind of piti and sukha, a kind of joy and pleasure, which is superior to the pleasure of sensual indulgence. So this is called a non-carnal or non-sensual joy, pleasure, and happiness. And as one experiences that pleasure, it helps to eliminate the attraction to sensually enticing objects, which bring a lower type, a coarser type of pleasure. And then the culmination comes with the attainment of the deep insight, which is vipassana, into the impermanent, unsatisfactory, and non-self nature of all conditioned phenomena. And when that insight reaches its culmination, then it will bring step by step the actual cutting off or eradication of sensual desire. Okay, so maybe we can see if there's any questions or comments that come. If anybody in the room, I often tend to overlook the people in the library because my mind is all often looking at the computer screen, but we'll give priority. Anybody in the library, in the hall, have any comments or questions? Okay, then we could see online if there's anybody. Okay, Gita?
Yes, Bhante, thank you for the teaching. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Many merits. But my question is, what if karma plays a role in this? Because people that we meet in life, it's not really coincidental. We've had something to do with them in our past lives.
Yeah.
And how can we, there are certain situations that come up with strong emotional connections, and you wouldn't understand why that connection is there, but there must have been something that happened in a past life that's brought two people together. How do you kind of, sometimes it's overpowering.
Yeah, well, what is the question exactly?
So what do you do in these situations when you meet people who you have a strong bond to? How do you control your emotional feelings that arise in your mind? I mean, do you look at Adinava and say this is all a danger, so let me let go of all this because it's impermanent anyway at the end, and it's an illusion created by the mind, born in the mind?
Hmm.
What do you do, Bhante?
Yeah, I mean, this is what you brought up is a very important point that we all have very, very close connections with other people that go through previous lives. And as, our karma is unfolding, those connections are going to manifest. And so we come into connection with people. This is the perpetual, say, challenge that faces a monastic, is that it said that we've all had sort of our partners from previous lives going back sometimes to speak about the expression, the 500 past life merit partner.
Yes.
Yeah. So when reaches maturity and then through the unfolding of karma, one comes into that connection with that person, and
Correct.
immediately you look at that person, the other person looks at you, and the love relationship from many past lives becomes
It's instant.
reactivated
Mhm.
and then brings, it's not necessarily a purely sensual desire. It can
Mhm.
be coming from a sort of deep love and affection,
Correct.
but it comes up and it brings that connection. And we don't recognize it, but those feelings come. You see the person and you just immediately feel so close to that person. You feel like a natural connection
Mhm.
to that person. And so if one is, I have to say, if one is going to lead a life as a lay person, then I think it's quite normal and natural to go with the flow of that relationship, which doesn't mean that you immediately surrender to it. You sort of have to test it out to see whether in the present life there's some kind of compatibility with that person. Sometimes
Mhm.
a sense of initial connection, initial attraction can be deceptive. And so you sort of explore, try it out to see whether can get along with that person, whether you can form a relationship based on true affection, love, respect, care, concern, devotion, commitment, dedication. In that case, if you're going to live a family life, a lay life, then you can form that relationship. In other words, you can marry that person or enter into a partnership with that person if you want to. But the problem is if you want to live a life, and then you could live a virtuous, good life as a Buddhist layperson, doing meritorious deeds, especially if the other person, if you're both Dhamma practitioners dedicated to the Dhamma, then you can develop your practice together. And we find in the suttas many cases of people, couples during the Buddha's time who had that very deep relationship through many, many past lives, who enter upon marriage as lay practitioners and live virtuous, dedicated, committed lives, lives of commitment to each other, but also lives of dedication to the practice of the Dhamma. So it's not the case that every sincere practitioner has to become a monastic. But for the monastic person, this is where the challenge comes in, is that, we say that we've all had these very deep connections with partners from past lives. And so as we try to live the monastic life in this existence, somehow the unfolding of karma can bring us into connection with that person. And so sometimes there are quite a number of cases like this. The person has, and usually this happens with the males. I'm not so sure how it happens with females, but the male has been living as a dedicated monk for a few years. And then there can be a group of like lay devotees come to the monastery to make offerings or to listen to the Dhamma or to join retreats. And then the monk looks out upon the participants, and somehow the eyes just focus on one female, and that female looks at the monk, and immediately a kind of electric current travels between the two. It's very true. That's not a joking matter. And it might not be a sense of immediate connection, but just through the working out of, as the two get closer together, get closer through repeated encounters. Sometimes a woman might ask questions or come for a discussion. And then some kind of bond, a feeling of intimacy develops between the two. And then the monk feels that he doesn't want to live the monk's life anymore. And then he will disrobe. This is the most common thing that happens. In the case of women who have been ordained as nuns, one doesn't hear very often of women leaving the monastic life to return to lay life because of an encounter with a male lay person. The women will leave the monastic life, but generally it's for other reasons.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, so let us see whether we have some other questions or comments. So I think Jia, you have your
Yes,
hand raised.
thank you, Bante, for teaching. I have a little comment and I do have a question. This is actually traced back to 40 some years ago when I was a teenager. And at that time, China didn't have any sexual education, so I have no idea. It was just everything just, you know, it's nothing related to sexual part.
Yeah.
But I was attracted to a boy who has this very exquisite voice. So sound, I really have a favor of sound.
Mhm.
So I got into a deep attraction towards that sound and then get illusion, certain illusions. And
And
that has been
delusion.
delusions,
Yeah.
form of delusion. So it has been with me for years. So fast forward today, lately I just encountered Shurangama Sutra.
Yeah.
So this is Mahayana, one of
Yeah.
the Mahayana sutra, and one of the Dharma friends share that there are 25 ways to get enlightened.
Yeah.
And one of the ways is through sound.
Yeah.
So you can contemplating sound and
Yeah.
you can get enlightened. I'm just wondering in Theravada, in fundamental Buddhism, is there any type of, discussion on this? And I'm just curious.
Yeah, I don't know any like text which advocates the focused attention to sound as a means of gaining insight or realization. Though we could say that if you take like the framework of the Satipatthana Sutta, where it speaks about attending to the six sense objects whenever they arise, so one understands, one of the passages goes, one understands the ear and sound and the fetter that arises in dependence upon the two. And so one can use sound, though I don't know like a specific text which describes using sound as an object of meditation, but one can use sound as an object just by focusing upon whatever sound is occurring during the practice. In fact, I remember years ago, I was bringing up a vague recollection of a Burmese meditation master, Tumpulu Soyador, who one of his methods of practice was to attend to whatever sound one is hearing. And so one just sort of opens up, the focus on the sound element and just listens and listens and listens. And so whatever sound one is hearing, as one attends to it, the sound is just a process of events arising and falling away.
So that's related to ear organ, right? Like Guanyin Bodhisattva is also, through the sound to convey, like we're doing mantra, like Om Mani Padme Hum, those type of mantra probably will help with the cultivation of the sound sensitivity.
Yeah, well, that's a different kind of practice in just attending to the sound object when it's not deliberately creating any sound oneself, but when it's just attending to whatever sounds arise and just letting them come into the range of awareness and just noting the sound, then letting it go, and then picking up the next sound, the next sound, the next sound.
So piggyback to Gita's question, there's some comic related. So I'm wondering my instance to that sensitivity of the sound is also comic event, which is that I being sensitive. I haven't really had another sensitivity to sound, but I'm really drawn to a nice sound. But I don't know it's connected or not. It's just curious.
To the sound of that boy's voice, or
Yes, that's
yeah,
very
whether that's due to karma, I just don't know. I don't know how to explain it.
Okay, thank you, Bante.
Okay, so let us see. Okay, so we have Chris.
Thank you, Bante. First of all, I love that last question about sound and meditation. It's a really deep topic. But my question was about control of the body. And I guess I'm curious if it's really possible. I mean, isn't there times when the body just says, nope, uh, I'm, I'm insisting? Is it really possible to kind of control the body, or is that sort of an ideal? But like, I'm just trying to understand how realistic such a, you know, instruction like that is. Like, it seems to me at times the body just takes over, and like during hunger or sexuality,
Oh, I
these
see.
are
You mean
deeply
that the
ingrained.
sexual desire is a natural instinct, so when it arises,
That like I think that in particular, yeah.
so that it just arises from the body itself. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I'm just saying that I'm just asking about if it's truly controllable, or maybe it's controllable to a large extent, but is it really controllable entirely?
Yeah, well, according to the Buddha's teaching, first, like sexual desire does arise from the body because it's part of the natural instinct, bodily instinct, and the expression of that, or it's the means of generating that kind of desire by which we continue the species. So it's something which is sort of imprinted into the genetic code of every living
Right.
being.
Mhm.
Even plants have sexual differentiation, male and female plants. And so it's the way in which living beings are drawn to each other in order to create the means for reproducing the species. But according to the Buddha's teaching, that sexual desire turns into a mental, though it arises from the body, from the genetic code of the body, but it becomes manifest in the mind as the sexual desire. And that sexual desire is as I said, is one form of craving, which sustains our own bondage to the cycle of repeated birth or death or samsara. And so the Buddha teaches that it is possible through training to overcome sexual desire. Considering that all of the prestige that sexual desire has in mainstream culture, it seems like a weird thing to do. But what the Buddha teaches is that sexual indulgence, so it brings immediate pleasure and joy and could also help to forge deep relationships, but it becomes a kind of bondage which eventually leads
Yeah.
or culminates in dukkha or suffering. So the ideal is to overcome that sensual desire, including sexual desire, by training the mind. And then it's possible by, as I said, by using the appropriate techniques to weaken and reduce the desire.
Okay.
And then by the development of insight and wisdom, especially to the stage of the non-returner, to utterly eradicate sensual desire. So the Buddha says that with his own attainment of enlightenment, all of these desires or cravings were uprooted, cut off at the root, eradicated so that they could no longer arise again in the future.
All right. Thank you, Bhante. Appreciate it.
Okay, so let us see. Is this Jeff? Agus?
Yes, hi, Bhante. Um, just going back for a moment to what the earlier questioner said, asked about using sound as liberation. She might have been told about the Mahayana concept of liberation through hearing. That may be what she was referring to. Most of my experience, I didn't tell you this when there wasn't an opportunity when we met several weeks ago, but most of my experience, most of my background has been among Tibetan teachers. And so, of course, there's the ritual, the recitation of the Bardo Turdal, the Book of the Dead, um, shortly after death, and then there are Mahayana sutras. That say that they make the claim that if you hear them recited, that it closes off the doors to lower rebirth. Certain mantras. I used to manage a Tibetan center here in the Boston area. I was back there recently. They were reciting the Sangata Sutra, in which
It was
the
starting
Buddha,
with what?
the Sangata Sutra,
Angata Sutra, yeah.
which is a Mahayana sutra, in which the Buddha tells an assembly of gods and humans, it's one of those sutras that are odd because it's self-referential, and the Buddha tells the assembly, if you hear this sutra recited even just once, you amass more karmic merit than all the Tathagatas of the 10 times, the
Yeah.
10 directions, the 3 times, yada yada. I would imagine Theravadins would not consider this authoritative.
Yeah, no, we don't have the Sangata Sutra.
Yeah, or anything. Yeah, exactly.
And I have to say very, very frankly, it's one of the things that deterred me from the Mahayana was the kind of claims about the vast amounts of merit that you attained just by listening to this text or by just
Yeah,
citing this formula. We
yeah,
don't find anything like that in the Pali Suttas.
yeah, yeah. Last year, I forget what was said. Someone said something Mahayanish, and you said, "Yeah, I'm aware of that. I can't believe it's that easy."
I don't remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember what it was. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, but as for the what's called the so-called Tibetan Book of the Dead, which is actually the title when it's translated is the Book of Liberation from Hearing, Bardo
Right,
Tardo, in the
right.
intermediate stage. Bardo is the intermediate stage. Tardo is Tarpa is liberation. I think Do is hearing. So this is liberation through hearing in the Bardo stage. So in that case, even supposing that it's true, that it's a valid method, the focus there is not on the sound itself. So that's quite different from contemplating sound.
Yeah,
This is grasping the meaning of the words being recited, because the lamas who are reading that book are trying to remind the deceased person whose mind is now in the Bardo stage that you shouldn't be overcome by fear or by grasping for another body, but you should recognize the inherent luminosity of the mind.
Yep.
And in that way, sort of move directly into liberation.
yeah.
Yeah, so that focuses on the meaning of the words rather than on the sound itself.
Mm.
Okay, let's see. I think we have Vandana.
Thank you, Bhante, for your teaching. So I also have a comment about this liberation through sound. So my personal experience when I first joined through Mahayana Chinese Center, and they were reciting Prashna Paramita, the emptiness sutta, and then I have that deep felt connection, and the body started to vibrate. So and then I heard it again, and I didn't know the meaning, I didn't know anything. But when I heard the English translation, then I could kind of made a connection. So it could be maybe from previous karmic connection or something. And also now when I start listening to Dhamma talks, the mind becomes one-pointed and completely absorbed in the Dhamma itself. So not only about the sound, but it's, as you mentioned, it has to be some kind of meaning. You're grasping the meaning, and then mind become one pointed. And the second comment about that person who was asking about this sexual impulse, so that separates us from animals to human, that we have this ability, as Buddha said, to be mindful of our own impulses
Yeah.
and take an action. For example, people fast, they're suppressing the hunger.
Yeah.
And same thing with the sexualness. And this is from my own experience. When the impulse start to come and you see it, and you know that this is not wholesome, so you need to figure it out how to just get it done, get rid of it, and not just get it carried away. So I think female have this more than men, maybe. That's my understanding, that men maybe had difficult time for this task, but female can do it. That's my own experience. Thank you.
Okay. 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 Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. So I see one more. This is Rick Cooper.
Thank you, Bhante. I just want some clarification, if I may. And I know we got away from desire a little bit and kind of went into sound, but it is kind of intriguing. Doesn't the Visuddhimagga talk about picking up sound as a countersign and then following it into absorption?
I don't recall any passage in the Visuddhimagga which speaks about sound as a countersign. To my recollection, it's always taken as a kind of visual object, or sometimes it can be a tactile object. Maybe there is, but it's I don't recall any such passage in the Visuddhimagga.
Okay, thank you, Bhante.
Okay, so I see now another hand has just popped up. This is V. V? So it seems that she didn't have a question. Okay, so I think we're going to end the session now. Okay, I actually had two suttas to discuss today, but we got sort of wrapped up in the discussion of this sutta. Okay, so we're going to end with the sharing of the merits. And so we share the merits with the devas, the nagas, and the other beings, asking them to protect the Dharma and to protect the world and ourselves and others. Akasa tacha bhumata deva naga mahidika punyanta manumoditva chirangra kantu sasanam. Akasa tacha bhumata deva naga mahidika punyanta manumoditva chirangra kantu desanam. Akasa tacha bhumata deva naga mahidika punyanta manumoditva chirangra kantu mang parang. Dukha patachani dukha baya patachani baya soka patachani soka antu sabe pipanino. May those in suffering be free from suffering. May those in fear be free from fear. May those in sorrow be free from sorrow. May all living beings also be thus. Okay, and then we'll do 3 bows to close. So we could stand up. Okay, so thank you everybody for joining.
And a bow to Bhante, Bodhi. Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you,
Sadhu, sadhu,
Okay.
sadhu. Thank you, Bhante, very, very much.
Thank you, Bhante. Good to
Thank
see
you,
you,
Bhante.
Bhante.
Be
Yeah,
well.
great to see you. Be
Very nice.
well,
Thank
be
you.
happy, stay
I'll see
happy.
everyone.
Thank
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
See you on Wednesday, Bhante. Take
Thank
care.
you, Bhante.
Bye.
Thank you very much, Bye.
Thank you,
Bye.
Bhante.
Sadhu,
Thank you, Bhante.
sadhu.
Okay, take care.